get involved with that as well. So lots of things to get involved with on the rundown this afternoon, but I want to start with, I went through the ACC and the SEC schedules. And I thought it'd be kind of fun to look at week by week the quote unquote biggest game in the conference, at least from my perspective as of right now. So there's that. So we'll start with that. We'll talk about Gunnar Stockton has made his choice. He's not going to Auburn. You know, we all thought, hey, he's going to Auburn with Mike Bobo. Nah, not so much. He's decided to go to Georgia. Yeah, we'll get into that as well. But we'll start with the SEC and the ACC schedule for the upcoming football season. You know, we went over South Carolina's yesterday. Great. It's great to look at some of these, give you kind of what I think are going to be the more interesting matchups. So some weeks have two matchups. We'll get you with that. But as of right now, I'm trying to just stick to one game that you look at and you're like, all right, that's probably going to be the game of the week. So we'll start September the 4th. Now, I know Alabama fans are going to be talking about, oh, it's Miami. No. No. The game of September the 4th that week is the Georgia-Clemson matchup in Charlotte. You can make an argument for LSU and UCLA, but Alabama would probably finish in third on that set because, in my mind, they're playing in a neutral site. Neutral site games don't matter. Sorry, at the regular season. And you're playing a Miami team that may not be ranked in the top 25. Georgia and Clemson is at a neutral site, but they're both going to be probably ranked in the top 4. So that's why that matchup is different. I wish that both of these schools would play each other every season. You know, I tell people all this all the time. It's shorter to get to Athens than it is to get to Columbia. But and when you think about that with the matchup, that should be, not saying, I know people are, you know, hey, you have to have South Carolina and Clemson in that rivalry matchup. I get that. But the other matchup on that list should be Georgia every year. Just saying. Will make a lot of sense. So September the 4th in the SEC, we go with Georgia and Clemson. I also like on the 6th, Labor Day, Ole Miss and Louisville play in Atlanta, so that should be pretty good. September the 11th, that weekend, you've got two matchups that I think are interesting. Texas playing at Arkansas, and you've also got Pitt at Tennessee. Those are probably going to be the two bigger matchups, in my opinion, on the week of the 11th. The week of the 18th is kind of an interesting weekend. I like these two matchups. Auburn at Penn State. Alabama, take notes. This is what you're supposed to do. I mean, they're in the same state that you're in, and they're going to go to Happy Valley and play. So congrats to Auburn for doing that and not the typical SEC weakling thing that a lot of teams in that conference do. I also like Alabama playing at Florida. So they are going to go down to the swamp and play down there. That's the same weekend as the 18th. On the 25th, that weekend, you know, you could look at Mizzou at Boston College, I guess, but I kind of like Tennessee at Florida. Blake says he likes Pitt at Tennessee, or not as much as he likes NC State and Starkville. Yeah, you can go with that, I guess. I just, okay. We can halfway go with that. That's fine. October the 2nd, you've got Auburn at LSU. That matchup is always one of the better matchups in the conference. It falls on that weekend. There are, you know, I guess you could look at Florida at Kentucky. I don't know. I like Auburn at LSU. I think that'll be the better matchup that weekend. Then we get into the week of the 9th. And on the week of the 9th, we have this one was easy for me. You had two. Georgia at Auburn and Alabama at Texas A&M. That could be the game that decides the West. It's one of the few times Alabama will be challenged all season. Georgia at Auburn, that's one of the biggest rivalries in college football. So I like that matchup with on the 9th. On the 16th, Florida at LSU. There's like some low-key hatred between these two rivals. So Florida at LSU, October the 16th. October the 23rd, you know, it's kind of flat. I'm going with South Carolina at Texas A&M. Can South Carolina break the streak? Probably not, but The rest of the matchups, Alabama's going to beat Tennessee by 60. UAPB plays at Arkansas. I mean, none of that really sets you on fire. So give me South Carolina at Texas A&M. October the 30th, Halloween weekend. This is simple, Georgia and Florida. That's going to be the matchup for the weekend there. I'm sure game day will be in Jacksonville for that. On November the 6th, you've got LSU at Alabama. That's on November the 6th. A lot of hatred there in that rivalry. And Auburn at Texas A&M. Liberty at Ole Miss. A good point there from Blake watching online. I like that matchup too, but that one's going to be, you know what? That should probably go to number one with Hugh Freeze's return there. But it's kind of hard to overlook LSU at Alabama, but that Liberty at Ole Miss matchup will draw some headlines. November the 13th, I've got Georgia at Tennessee. I don't see another game on there. I guess Mississippi State at Auburn. You could argue that might be a good game if the Pirate can get those guys right. November the 20th is quite possibly the worst week of the SEC season. I mean, Arkansas and Alabama, okay, but here's the rest of it. Charleston Southern at Georgia, New Mexico State at Kentucky, Louisiana Monroe at LSU, Vandy at Ole Miss, Tennessee State at Mississippi State. You've got Florida and Mizzou, which might be interesting with the the fight that they had last season. We'll see how that works out. South Alabama at Tennessee, Prairie View A&M at Texas A&M. But I'm going with Auburn at South Carolina. The return of Mike Bobo to Williams-Brice Stadium. I am sure he is going to get his butt booed by everyone. At least Tracy Rocker will be in the NFL somewhere. He won't get booed. But Will Friend, which probably nobody knows who he is from looking at him, people will try to remember that. But yeah, Auburn's going to get booed big time when they come to South Carolina on the 20th. And then the final week of the season, I mean, pick your poison. You've got every rivalry you want. Alabama at Auburn, Florida State at Florida, Georgia Tech, Kentucky, Louisville, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Clemson, Vanderbilt, Clemson at South Carolina, Vanderbilt at Tennessee, right on down the line. So rivalry weekend is still going to be one of the coolest weekends as far as that goes. And then, of course, you've got the SEC Championship scheduled for December the 4th in Atlanta. Okay, so there's my SEC picks. The ACC week-by-week schedule, here's what we've got. Obviously, September the 4th, it's easy with Clemson and Georgia. Louisville and Ole Miss. You also got Notre Dame and Florida State. So that might be interesting, too. 803-978-1832. We'll get back to that in a moment. Let's head out to the hotline. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Rundown. Well, they'll call back. All right. Anyway, moving on to week 2. I like Pitt at Tennessee. The rest of the matchups, not anything there to really write home about in the ACC in week 2. Let's try one more time. Out to the phones we go. Welcome into the Rundown. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Rob. It's Ray. How are you doing today?
Ray, what's up, buddy?
Hey, I'm just gonna, I can be a critic. I'm a fan, so sometimes I'm critical, but I do give dues when dues are rewarded, and I just want to give a credit out to the Gamecock basketball team last night for playing a really good game. And I'll tell you, I think Keyshawn Bryant. I didn't think I'd ever say this 3 or 4 months ago, but I think he's getting close to being NBA ready. What do you think?
The Gamecock basketball team looked like they kind of figured it out last night, but it's kind of hard for me to make a judgment on that because, let's be honest. I don't think that Georgia's that good of a basketball team. So that's kind of hard to make any assumptions on that.
You're absolutely. I was going to talk a couple more things. Did Clemson win their game last night?
Clemson did win over Louisville. Yes, they did. But it was like it was just, there wasn't a lot of offense. Let's leave it at that.
Well, that's one of those quality wins, whatever they call, because I know Louisville was ranked in the top 25, I believe. So,
yes,
they got back. They got a good win there. I know they had a tough week last week, but what I was really cold about is I got friends that are Tennessee fans, and I got one of them. I just could. It's just amusing to me. Some of them still say, "John, sign up to be the Tennessee football coach." and they almost think Josh Hopper was a that they deserve way better than that. I said, no, you don't. I said, your football program was about Tennessee in the 1990s, and they're having a hard time with that, Rob.
You're right about that. I love the people who say Tennessee's going to be back. Well, back from what? They've been terrible for a long time. I mean, they've been mediocre to bad. They didn't win a conference game 3 years ago. That's not very good.
No. And you can take some of these programs that may have been off a couple of years and they get it back, and the fan base seems to forget all about that. Tennessee, we're talking a generation ago almost. But anyway, Rob, that's just kind of what I had to say. But thank you.
All right, bud. Appreciate it. A couple of comments before we get back to our ACC stuff here. Blake asked if Beamer starts out 6-1 and then picks up a couple of more wins, could he win SEC Coach of the Year? If you start 6-1, I'm guessing your first loss would be to Georgia. So that would give you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, you're only lost to Georgia, and you've navigated through Eastern Illinois, East Carolina, Kentucky, Troy, Tennessee, and Vanderbilt. If you start 6-1, then yeah, that's probably right. I wouldn't have any issue with that. As far as being Coach of the Year, I don't know how that stuff's voted on, man. You know, it's interesting. That's all I can say about awards and stuff. If he goes 6-1 in his first 7, it's going to be Beamer fever around here. So the conservative thing to say with South Carolina is that they win 5 games next season. And I don't think that's being unrealistic at all, simply because of everyone that they've lost. And they are a rebuilding program right now. So we'll take calls on that at 803-978-1832. Back to our picks for the ACC games of the week. UCF at Louisville, a Friday night game. You know, I don't think we've talked about this on the rundown. Why do we have Friday night games? I don't get that. I can stomach the Thursday night games. Let the high school kids play on Friday night. Let them have the spotlight. Friday night games, I just don't get. Clemson's got a Friday night game on their schedule this year too, and it's just, you look at it and you're like, man, this is stupid. It's Friday, October the 15th. They play at Syracuse. The last Friday night game they played at Syracuse, Clemson lost, if I remember correctly. Anyway, that Friday matchup will obviously get some eyes as UCF is on the road at Louisville. Other matchups on the week 4 games, I've got another one with Mizzou at Boston College and then Clemson at NC State that could determine some of the Atlantic Division stuff there. Out to the phones we go, 803-978-1832. Good afternoon. Oh, they hung up on us. That's fine. We'll take your calls on 803-978-1832. All right, then week 5, Thursday night game, Virginia at Miami, a battle for the the Coastal, the Chaos Coastal. I think that's going to be one of the more interesting games that week in the ACC. The other game you can look at is Duke and North Carolina because, you know, the big rivalry between those two. I mean, they do play more than basketball up there. Some people forget that. The following week, week 6, Florida State at North Carolina. So, yeah, that's going to be an interesting matchup there. Is Florida State, quote unquote, back? People are talking about Florida State's going to be better this year. Yeah, it's the whole show me state thing, man. Show me and we'll see. The following week, Miami goes to North Carolina. So, another coastal matchup that could be interesting down the road. Week 8, Wake Forest plays Army. Now, I did that because I like it when teams schedule the service academies. That's just me. Everyone's probably going to be looking at Clemson and Pitt, maybe NC State at Miami. But for me, I'd rather watch the Wake Forest Army game. Week 9, North Carolina at Notre Dame. That's Halloween weekend. Florida State will also be at Clemson. Remember, there was some bad blood about COVID stuff here, and this is going on there. And, yeah, it just doesn't – a lot of bad blood between the two programs there. Remember Dabo Swinney saying they should financially compensate us, etc. Yeah, not the kind of stuff you like to hear from football, but that'll be interesting too. In week 10, the matchup that I like is NC State at Florida State. Not a very ton of great matchups that weekend, but I'll take the Wolfpack playing at Florida State. Week 11, Miami at Florida State, the rivalry that was supposed to be the greatest rivalry in the ACC, but we've never had that in the ACC championship game. So we'll just have it in the regular season and play it on November the 13th. Also, you've got Notre Dame at Virginia, so they get some conference games in the ACC, even though they left. Florida State plays at Boston College. That's the Week 12 matchup that I think is that's pretty interesting. You got Wake at Clemson too, I guess. Can Dave Clawson make a matchup close with Clemson? We'll have to monitor that. And then you have the week of the 27th. Those are your rivalry matchups. In addition to Clemson at South Carolina, you got Florida State at Florida, Georgia Tech at Georgia, Kentucky at Louisville. I wish Pitt played West Virginia like they used to, because that was a big-time rivalry back in the day. So there's that. You've also got Virginia Tech and Virginia. So those rivalry matchups on the 13th. All right, so there's our look at the schedules. We'll talk a little bit when we come back about some of the recruiting stuff that happened with Gunnar Stockton deciding to go to Georgia. Interesting. We'll get into that when we come back. You're listening to The Rundown. This is Fox Sports Radio 1400. You're right about that, Jerome. I'm going to get some water. I'll be right back. That's not a real big buy there, Blake. I mean, I agree with you. Tennessee's got they got what, 21 guys in the transfer portal. So it's not that far-fetched. That's something else too. And, maybe we'll talk about that when we come back. Welcome back to The Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Around the world in the iHeartRadio app, 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832 is the number to call. Big recruiting news today. Gunnar Stockton, the former five-star quarterback that was committed to South Carolina and Will Muschamp, has decided to transfer. We thought it was going to be to Auburn. He was going to follow Mike Bobo and go to Auburn? Not so much. He's decided, hey, I'm going to go and play for Kirby Smart at Georgia. Now, granted, Georgia gets a ton of recruits, man. They are one of the top, they're normally one of the top recruiting team programs in the country all the time. I worry, though, about this guy going to, if you're just looking at it from the perspective of, is that a good fit? Georgia does not strike me as the place to go if you're a quarterback that is a mobile type quarterback, which is what he is, that's the place that you should go. Remember, this is the same place that JT Daniels was fourth string last season when Jamie Newman was there and had to work his way up the depth chart. Okay. This guy's a projected Heisman Trophy candidate for this coming season. Then you've got the whole Justin Fields saga. There you go with that. What was Justin Fields? What was the big difference between Justin Fields and Jake Fromm? Jake Fromm was a typical drop back passer as opposed compared to Justin Fields, who moved around a little bit in the pocket. I don't think that Kirby Smart believes in anything other than the drop back passer. I truly believe that. Now, this Gunnar Stockton kid could come in there and maybe he'll enlighten him. I don't know. The great coaches evolve. If you remember Steve Spurrier, when he won games at South Carolina, a lot of it was due to the defense. Yeah, the offense was pretty good, but it was the defense that carried the team. Unlike at Florida, where, the whole fun and gun offense and everything else. But my big thing with that is, I don't know if that's exactly the right move for him, but it's where he chooses to go, and he should be able to go wherever he wants. I do think that he is the kind of prospect that if he doesn't get to play, he's probably going to go somewhere else. And it's not that far-fetched. If you want to respond to that, 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. And one other thing I had in my list of stuff here was, we've had three SEC East teams change coaches this fall. I don't really count Vanderbilt because, once again, I think Vanderbilt's an academic institution that focuses on baseball. No disrespect to them. But I think that on the football front, it's going to be tough for Vanderbilt to compete, just the way that it is. So when you look at the other two SEC East teams, though, and I know we're in Columbia here, but which side do you like better as far as the hire? Which hire makes the best fit? You can make arguments for both sides. We'll start with Tennessee, which is the other team, by the way, with Josh Heupel. He has that relationship with his athletic director, and I think that's a big deal. I'm not saying that Coach Beamer doesn't have that with Ray Tanner, but it just seems like it's a completely fresh look on that front at Tennessee, with the old guard leaving with Phil Fulmer and everything else. With Shane Beamer, they're both young coaches. One of the areas that you kind of lean towards Tennessee with is that he's was 28-8 overall as a head coach. This is Shane Beamer's first job as a head coach. So when you look at it from that perspective, it kind of leans that way. But you know what? I firmly am in the corner of Coach Beamer, simply because maybe it's just I've been wowed by the way that he's done stuff on social media and just the current vibe of the program. I think that the violations and stuff that are coming at Tennessee is going to make it really hard for me. So we'll figure that out as we go. But which hire do you think is gives you the best feel good portion of yourself right now? I guess is the term to use. Are you going with Shane Beamer, or do you think that it might be a little more interesting with Josh Heupel up at Tennessee? We'll take calls on that. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. Couple of notes on that. Grover says Kirby has a history of quarterbacks with talent levels where there's no place to go but down. Nobody does a better job than Kirby and QBs going down. Riley says at least Georgia has the QBs to bring down. Jerome says, I challenge that. Will Muschamp is better at ruining quarterbacks. Thank you for that, sir. Ryan Helinski probably agrees from up at Northwestern. Alan says that I'm big mad. Carolina gunned down again. Yeah, I'm really upset. Tell you what. Jerome said 6-6 would be a great season for South Carolina. Brock says that he sees them going 7-6, I guess, with a bowl game. Maybe 8-4, but sticking with 6-6, that's fine. Oh, he's got it 7-5. There you go. So there's some of the rundown from the folks in the chat room over there. All right, we're taking calls at 803-978-1832. Is there an SEC or ACC game that you're looking big time forward to this year? We'll take calls on that. We'll also get into the hoops. Last night, South Carolina picking up a win over Georgia. I mean, they needed that win. I just don't know how good Georgia is. And I feel that way with a lot of teams right now. Normally this time of the year, I'm starting to develop my bracket stuff and how I'm going to set up my bracket for, the NCAA tournament. But right now, I couldn't tell you about some teams, man. A perfect example, we'll use Clemson's because I've seen a lot of their games and, of course, following them when because we talk about them here on the rundown. Clemson's 9-5 on the season, or 10-5, 10-4, whatever it is. They started the season 9-1. So then they had 3 games where they couldn't defend at all. And then last night they finally come and play defense. It's up and down with all that. So it's kind of hard to figure out this basketball season. Some folks over online saying they like the Clemson and Georgia matchup as far as football goes. Jonathan likes South Carolina and Auburn at home against Bobo. He says that should be delicious. That's kind of funny. So are Gamecock fans really that upset with Bobo? I mean, I've seen it online, but are you going to boo him really bad when he comes in with Auburn? That may happen. You never know. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832 is the number to call. If you want to join us here on the rundown, I once again, we've talked about scheduling stuff in the past. A lot of heat from people that are like, well, the Clemson schedule is the easiest in the country. How could you possibly make that determination at the beginning of the season? It's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. You look at the end of the season, you figure out who's ranked, and then you see how many ranked opponents they played. By the way, Clemson last season played the same amount of ranked opponents at the end of the year as Alabama. Now, I know those facts hurt the SEC apologists' feelings because it just doesn't work out because they're like, but Ole Miss is supposed to be great. No. The end of the season, you look at the teams that are ranked. In the regular season, Clemson played 2 ranked football teams. Alabama played 2 ranked football teams. That's the way it is across the country, man. It's not just the SEC is the most awesome ever. You got to get your brain out of that. Be a more educated fan. Don't run around with your, I love the SEC stuff. It's just silly. More of the rundown when we come back. This is Fox Sports Radio 1400. That would make a lot of sense. Bobo the Clown. That's funny, Jonathan. Why not get Brock's right? Why not get jacked up for the Georgia game? That's what I would be. I guarantee you, if the pandemic stuff, I'll save that for when we come back on the air. But yeah. What is the Rob lobster? Are you implying that I'm a lobster? That's funny. I try to stay away from soda, even though I've gotten into them here the past 2 or 3 months. I'm going back to lifting, back to my weightlifting routine. I'm going to be in some competitions. I got to wear a singlet. I'm not very happy about that. But yeah, I'm going to cut all that out and probably just be drinking water too to be forever. But if I had to choose, I'd probably go with Coke. I like Dr. Pepper and I like cherry Coke. And I like these brisk teas too. My real big drink of choice is I like the Red Bull pear. It's supposedly, we've talked about this before on here. It's the sugar-free version of Red Bull that I like. No, Cheer One's all right. Yeah. Yeah. Right about that. You're right about that, Tom. The LaCroix stuff, my CrossFit coach had me drinking LaCroix. Ugh. I would rather, no, that's not happening ever. If you guys see me somewhere and I'm drinking LaCroix, you have my permission to slap me in my face and just say, you know what? What is wrong with you? The heck is wrong with you, man? Welcome back to the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Around the world on the iHeart Radio app. My name is Rob Sanders. We're talking about drinks during the break. We'll take your calls on the schedules, by the way, at 803-978-1832. 803-978-1832 is the number to call to join us here on the Rundown. We were talking about, someone asked if I were a Coke or a Pepsi guy in the YouTube chat, and it's like, I drink, I'm trying to get away from soda. I like the Red Bull Pear Edition, which is like sugar-free, so I try to drink that. I like the brisk tea, but we were goofing about that, and I'm getting back into my weightlifting stuff where I'm going to compete in some weightlifting contests, and I found out, I'll share this with the group here, that I have to wear a singlet, like an actual singlet to this one weightlifting thing. I don't know what the big deal is with all that. I've done like CrossFit competitions and stuff like that, but the weightlifting singlet, I don't know. I've seen them online. It's like, I got to wear that. That's crazy. So I don't know. Well, I'll keep you up to date on that as I start getting back into my weightlifting training next Monday. All right. So we went over the SEC, the ACC schedule. We talked about Gunnar Stockton making his way to Georgia. I don't think that's the best way to go for him, but hey, he should be able to go wherever he wants. Some questions from the folks in the chat room. Milton says, do you think ECU can challenge South Carolina in Greenville? You know, this is all, and I know this sounds silly here, but we don't really know what South Carolina is going to have. It's going to be a transition type year. You don't really know who's going to be where, who's going to transfer out. I mean, you don't know. So here's what I do know. I think East Carolina last year, I need to get with my buddy B Paves, who is like, he is on the, like big time on covering, in East Carolina. So if you look at East Carolina last year, where'd they go last year? They went 3-5 over in conference, 3-6 overall. So not exactly the most impressive year for East Carolina. I still think the transfer portal is going to bring some talent into Columbia, so we'll see. I like the big wide receiver that they got from St. Francis. So that's going to be, I think that just his big his big thing is he's so tall. He's 6'8", weighs in at 235. If he's going to be able to occupy some space there. Tom says I'm overthinking it. Yeah, I don't look at any game when it comes to a rebuilding program and think, oh, okay. And I went back and checked on some of the stuff I said about Arkansas. I didn't think Arkansas would win a game last season. I thought Arkansas had the potential to go 0-10. I thought Mizzou was going to go 1-9. What happened? Both of those teams ended up, I think Arkansas had 3 wins. Mizzou had what, 6, 5, 6, something like that. So it's easy for you just to sit here and live in the doldrums. I know that sounds silly too, but you could have that problem where you're just, oh man, this is terrible. This is terrible. Brock says the recruiting class hurts, but the Gamecocks still have a lot of talent. Yeah. I mean, there are bright spots for South Carolina. There definitely are. I wonder about guys like Pickens and of course the young man that played at Hammond. Yeah, I mean, there's some talent there. And of course, you return the SEC's leading rusher with another guy behind him that's supposedly really good. So there are some pieces there. They're not going to be like Tennessee this year where, like right now, if Tennessee had to suit up a team, I think they'd have I think I did the math, 72 players is what they'd have right now. Jordan Birch, thank you for that, Jonathan. I haven't heard anything on the running backs coaching job. I bet that happens tomorrow. I think that we'll have or no later than Monday, Coach Beamer will have his running backs coach. Just something that, just a guess. Nothing that I've heard from folks, just a guess. I think he wants to get that done, just like any other coach would, to be honest with you. Tom says he'd love to see Marcus Lattimore brought in as an assistant. Lattimore's been a coach, so I don't know if his name would be in the mix or not. But does Marcus Lattimore want to recruit? Because you're going to have to recruit. That's the big thing. A couple of other notes. People are saying Tennessee is back. Back to what? I laugh really silly with all that. Back to what? Brandon says if South Carolina goes 6-6 this year, that wouldn't be a huge surprise, would it? If they beat ECU, Eastern Illinois, and Troy, the 3 wins would only have to win 3 more with Vandy. And I don't understand why South Carolina just writes off Mizzou like, oh, we're just going to beat Mizzou. Just stop it. Stop it. You're going to play at Mizzou. If you're going to tell me that you're going to beat Tennessee and they're rebuilding, fine with that. Vanderbilt, fine with that. Kentucky, you've lost 5 out of the last 6 to, or 6 out of the last 7, something like that. So it's not a pushover with Kentucky anymore. I will buy into Tennessee because of where they are right now. I will buy into Vanderbilt because Vanderbilt's just not very good. They don't really have anyone on that roster that makes you think, okay, this should be interesting. But those other 2 games, not so much, man. Eastern Illinois went, 1-11 last year. They're playing a 7-game spring schedule. So for Gamecock fans wanting to look at your first opponent, you can watch them this spring as they get set up. They're going right after the Super Bowl is the first week of those games. SoCon matchups. I'm going to be watching that. We may get into that when we come back from the break, but I like the idea of the spring football with the colleges, man. Wouldn't mind driving down to the Citadel and watching the Citadel play. Who doesn't like the Citadel? Watch some SoCon games. I can get into that. 803-978-1832. 803-978-1832. Deshaun Watson last night, or actually this morning, we found out that he's requested a trade. I don't think he plays another down for the Houston Texans. Question is, where will he go? Everyone's wanting the Jets. And you know what? He may end up signing with the Jets. But you know why we're constantly fed the Jets? Because these big market folks at the 4-letter network, they want someone that is worth assault at quarterback at one of these big, at either the Jets or the Giants. That's what they want. And they would die to have that so they could have somebody to cover up there. They're not rooting for him to go to the Carolina Panthers, which is why you won't hear a lot about that. They're not rooting for him to go to the New Orleans Saints, which I'm not saying he's going to go there, but that's a team that would probably be a good fit for him. I think Deshaun Watson, one of his biggest things, we've talked about the stuff with, he was upset about the coaching staff and things like that, but I think Deshaun Watson wants to win. You're not going to win with the Jets. You're not. The guy led the league in passing. then they still finished 4-12 in Houston. You think he's going to go to the Jets and improve them? Come on, you can be great and still lead a team to 4-12. I think he wants to win. And I think that the idea of going to play maybe for the Panthers they're not that bad. Same thing goes for the Saints, who they got to find another quarterback to replace Drew Brees. I don't think they're on board completely with Jameis Winston. We'll talk about that in a moment. You're listening to The Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400. I don't know where. You guys have any idea where he's going to go? Yeah, Cynthia with a good point. Jeremy Pruitt to the Giants. Ugh. Are you talking about, the Trey Lance? Okay, yeah, I got you. Intern comes in tomorrow. Mr. Savage College Football, which I think he's Eric Wilson's son, who Coach Eric Wilson, his son. So pretty cool guy. Trying to get him to watch WrestleMania 3. He's not buying that. So he didn't have time to watch it yet, which is interesting. Yeah, I'm pre-recording the interview at 1:00 tomorrow, but I'm going to play it here. But you'll hear the interview, but it's a theater of the mind. But yeah, we're going to talk about that because I'm on the actual radio there, Alfred. This is my radio show. That's the whole thing. I'll talk to you guys throughout the show, though. We got to wrap up this season, Jonathan. We got to see how that goes. I think it's a Mike knows his stuff, man. Final segment of the rundown this afternoon on Fox Sports Radio 1400. All right, so I got a cool stat that I wanted to share. Deshaun Watson is currently the NFL's all-time leader in completion percentage behind Drew Brees. And in 2020, he became just the 11th player in NFL history to complete at least 70% of his passes in a single season. That, my friends, is pretty good. Pretty good stuff there. Through 33 touchdowns and 4,823 passing yards. Single season franchise records for the Houston Texans. I thought it was 4,300. It's 4,800 yards. Got through for almost 5,000 yards. That's why I laugh when people are like, I don't know if anybody's worth 3 first-round picks. Let's talk about that for a second. If you look at the first-round picks, and let's do a simple. Let's look at the 2018 NFL draft. Okay? When you look at the 2018 NFL draft, your selections, okay? The first one, let's make sure I've got I got to get the whole draft up in front of me. But the idea of what I'm trying to get at here is that you end up with a lot of guys that are not quite what you want. So you have the opportunity to possibly you pick up a quarterback, which every NFL team needs, and then you can build around that. So that's my thing too. Tom has a good point here. It doesn't matter if you can't do it on the big stage, but you can't get to the big stage when you have the 31st ranked defense in the NFL. You have no chance of being able to get that far. That's just the way that it is. Brandon with a comment about who's the longest tenured Clemson player in the NFL right now. I don't know. I have to look that up for you. Jonathan says Deshaun Watson is, he can say objectively, shouldn't even get within 1,000 miles of the Jets. No one should get within 1,000 miles of the Jets. They've got, wow. But the reality is that giving up 3 first-round picks makes a lot of sense. But I don't think it's going to come down to the draft picks. I think it's going to come down to the salary. And can they make the salaries match to keep teams where the salaries pretty much balanced? That's what it's going to come down to. Because Deshaun Watson's he's got a 3-year contract. And that's something else too. He may have to make that trade. He's probably going to have to sign a new contract, which may pay him less now and more later. But I mean, I think he's eligible for another contract at 28. He's 25 now, something like that. Before his 30th birthday, he can still sign another contract. Now, granted, lots of quarterbacks play longer than that. And with the way Deshaun Watson makes plays with his feet, he takes a lot more shots than other quarterbacks. So his career may not go as long as an Aaron Rodgers or, a Tom Brady, etc. But I think it's safe to bank on, say, at least 5 to 7 good years for Deshaun Watson. And if you have 5 to 7 years with the quarterback position locked up for you, with a guy that is one of 11 people in NFL history to complete 70% of his passes, and he did that this year without DeAndre Hopkins, by the way, that's really good. And I know people, the one thing they're going to say is, yeah, well, he makes passes that are short. Yeah, no, it's not like that. I think he led the league in per attempt. So the idea of lots of stuff thrown at Deshaun Watson here that I've seen in different write-ups and stuff about, is he, I guess the best way, is he worth the 3 first-round picks? He absolutely is. Absolutely is. And Houston should wait on that too. Simple as that. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. That is the number to call. If you'd like to join us here on the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400. I did have this story Brandon's talking about up on my blog page. You should check out that, by the way. There's all kinds of great stuff up there. Everything from, I had Clemson schedule up early this morning. We've got the Gunnar Stockton story. All of that's up there. And I try to keep up with all kinds of great stuff and post it over there. So you can just go to that one spot and get all of your college football, basketball, all that stuff in one spot. So Brett Favre over the weekend said that Jacksonville should take Devontae Smith over Trevor Lawrence. And I just stepped back in a minute and I'm like, and he talked about how Devontae Smith could be Randy Moss. Think about that for a minute. Got to have the quarterback to throw him the ball. Just saying. I mean, if you don't have the quarterback to initiate all of that, it's not going to work. Randy Moss had his best seasons when he was playing with Dante Culpepper, Tom Brady. Got to have that quarterback to throw you the ball. If you don't, it's not going to work out for you. Simple as that. All right, so be sure to check out that on the blog page. All of that's up in there. Someone's talking about he got in trouble for embezzling money from bingo halls. I mean, this guy made a ton of money in his NFL career. Guess some people have to make that money with you on that. Anyway, blog page is foxsportsradio1400.com. Also, look out for Lawton Swan of Clemson Sports Talk, the czar of Clemson Sports, on the vast Clemson Sports Talk radio network. When I do my weightlifting competition, I got to wear the singlet. If I win, I'm going to sign it, and he's going to hang it in the Clemson Sports Talk Hall of Fame. That's what's going to happen. Yep, he already told me about that. So be sure to check out Swanee's show. He's on from 4 to 6 this afternoon. Then, of course, Teddy Hefner on in the morning from 9 to noon. Tomorrow, Mike Mooneyham joins me from the Post and Courier, one of the best wrestling writers of that I know of. Always great stuff he puts out. Of course, he wrote Sex, Lies, and Headlocks. His latest book, Final Bell, came out about a year ago. Still outstanding. It's basically people that passed away where he wrote like their story. And it's like almost like the best set of eulogies that you'll read for professional wrestlers. The one on Dusty Rhodes and the Fabulous Moolah is just absolutely outstanding. Outstanding. And the crazy thing is when one of these guys passes away, everyone looks to Mike Mooneyham as to like, oh my goodness, he's going to put their career in perspective quick. Yeah. Going to be great stuff talking with Mike Mooneyham. We'll get into the Royal Rumble a little bit. Talk about that over the weekend. Kind of jacked up for that card. The sad thing is that wrestling for me, I mean, I try to watch all the time, but I really get jacked about the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. And then I teeter off a little bit, and then I get jacked for the Survivor Series and then SummerSlam to an extent. But I don't know. During the summertime, I'm kind of like, I don't watch as much. I just don't. But we'll talk with Mike Mooneyham, some professional wrestling for you on the program tomorrow. 803-978-1832. I'm about out of time. I can't take calls today. Yeah, people are asking about, I'm doing a weightlifting competition. I got to wear a singlet. I'm going to autograph it if I win, and we're going to hang it up in the Clemson Sports Talk Hall of Fame. Lawton Swan's already signed off on it. So ask him about that when you check out his show today. You could tweet at him at Clemson Sports. Well, Lawton's going to get mad at me one day. He doesn't come in the studio anymore, so I just pick at him on the air. He may send me a text later. Nah, Lawton wants to be mayor. Anyway, his show is next. Thank you for checking out the rundown. People are I'm not joking. I'm doing a weightlifting competition. I have to wear a singlet. I think I'm going in July, something like that. We'll figure it out. All right. Appreciate you guys, man. We'll talk to you tomorrow on the rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Let's see here. I expect to see them. I'm not wearing that thing. You guys know what a singlet is, right? It's like a pair of, you got like the overall thing. I got nothing. I'll tweet out what it is. We'll be back at it tomorrow. You guys are awesome, though. Thank you so much, man. Appreciate you guys talking sports with me today. See you tomorrow.